Right now, we're on our first panel discussion for today, which is on cloud transformation panel discussion on how cloud will prevail, building a cloud strategy. We're looking at talking about creating a policy, strategy, and adoption plan, establishing a fully empowered cloud center of excellence, supplementing skills shortage, and seeking knowledge transfer, recognizing the need for optimization as an integral part of cloud migration, adopting a hybrid multi-cloud strategy. How do we mitigate the challenges of virtualization? Is IaaS the most effective way forward? Who owns and controls the data? And how do we ensure compliance and security in a regulated industry? Well, ladies and gentlemen, before I introduced our eminent panelists, I just request you all to join us for the poll. Now, this poll is very simple, and I'm going to just share my screen for the moment. Just allow me a moment on the same. So while I'm doing the screen share, this is what the poll looks all about. So what you got to do is go to www.menti.com and you got to use this code, which is 5607501. So ladies and gentlemen, for this, what you got to do is there's a simple question, and this is going to be a live poll, which I'd request you to participate in. It says that, where are you in the cloud journey? And the first poll which you have to participate is, where are you in the cloud journey? And you've got 4 options, which is thinking about it. That's the first option. Using it as a data center as a second option. Starting to build a cloud-based architecture is your third option. And your fourth is, most of our apps are cloud native. So what you got to do is right now go to www.menti.com. That's the URL. And I'd urge everyone to participate on the same. And you got to use the code. Once again, I'm reiterating the code, which is 5607501. So as you can see live, it gets updated. As you can see, some of you have already voted, saying most of our apps are cloud native. And I just request, I'll give you a minute for the same. Wherein I'd request all of you, because we've got it running it live right now. So I'd request all of you, if you are having this URL, which is www.menti.com, and you use the code 5607501. Even I'm just going to do the same right now. I'm going to go to this URL, and as you can see, we're at 33% or at starting to build a cloud-based architecture, which is now going to 40. So it's all between 40 and 60%, which are the last 2 options. So let me also log into menti.com and let me also participate in this poll. As you can see, you just got to go to menti.com and put in the code 5607501. And this is wherein I'm also logging in and I'm answering it with my answer. As I've got my answer right there. And I've just logged in, and it says at the end, thank you for your participation. So as you can see, a lot of us are participating, and right now I'm just going to have another 30 more seconds to this, since everyone's logging in virtually today. I'd give you another 30 seconds to participate on this. All you got to do is go to www.menti.com and use the code 5607501. Another 20 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very exciting poll wherein we get to know that, where are you in the cloud journey? And this is a very prevalent question, which we all would like to know, as this is edging towards the topic of our current panel discussion. So right now we're at 8%, 25, 25, and 42%. Another 10 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. Another 5 more. And that's about it. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see that some of the 8% of the audience is right now thinking about it. 25% of the audience, current audience, is using it as a data center. 25% is starting to build a cloud-based architecture. And 42% feels that most of their apps are already cloud native. So with this, you can see that a lot needs to happen. A lot could happen in the cloud journey in the Indian subcontinent. So ladies and gentlemen, from this, taking the cue of moving on to our discussion, wherein we're going to be just doing the same right now. Just allow me a moment on the same. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, as the poll just got done, I now take the honor of talking about our panelists. First up, Sathish Krishnan, Director, Cloud Platform and DevOps Engineering is joining us. Well, Sathish is a technology leader with 15 years of experience building enterprise-grade software products and solutions using cloud, cloud native, and IoT-based application. Also, we're joined by Parna Ghosh, the group CIO of Minda Group. Well, Parna has over 22 years of experience, 22 years plus experience in strategy formation, short and long term goal planning, application development, implementation, stakeholder management, product management, and building management. Also, we're joined by Ayaskant Mohapatra, the Chief Information Officer, BOB Financial Solutions. While Ayaskant has over 17 years of IT experience in taking challenges, tapping new business opportunities, delivering high-risk engagement successfully, and coming out as a winner. Also, we're joined by Sujay Sen, the Director IT South Asia, the Lind Group. Well, Sujay has more than 2 decades of experience in the IT and digital transformation management for large manufacturing organizations across multiple geographies. And ladies and gentlemen, this entire conversation and the panel discussion is going to be moderated by Bobby M., CIO, TVS Supply Chain Solutions. Well, Bobby has 25 years of experience, including digital transformation, strategizing and architecting the digital roadmap, putting the pieces together towards the DX vision using mobile, cloud, analytics, AI, ML, and data layers. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with this, I'd now like to leave it in the able hands of our moderator, Bobby, to take it forward with his panel. Over to you.
Thank you, Bhavna. I hope I'm audible. Well, good day to you folks, and I'm very happy to be sitting in this session with an absolutely wonderful set of people working, talking to me about what we will do with cloud transformation, and will cloud prevail. Well, to me, the question will cloud prevail is pretty much a non-starter, because the cloud will prevail, because that's what it looks like. The question we are trying to talk about, and the issues we will discuss about, are more about how will it be. We're trying to bring the crystal ball, gaze into it, and probably put our collective experience together and give a way forward and a path forward. So welcome Ayaskant, welcome Parna, welcome Sathish, and welcome Sujoy. Amazing people, amazing experiences, and I'm sure we'll have great insights coming our way. So before we get started with the way we will have this panel going around, the kind of topics we would want to talk and things like that, here's a bit of a context. Now, cloud is something that's second nature to us. We speak about cloud the way we speak about water. But then, do we know that it appears about 48 million times in the internet? If you've done a search for cloud, there are 48 million instances of cloud computing appearing on the internet. Now, that really means that there's a lot of stuff that goes around it, right? But typically, do we know where it came from? When did we start talking about cloud computing? We all know data centers, we all know mainframes. When did it really start? And interestingly so, a magazine called Technology Review tried to find this one out. And they went all the way back to 1996 into Houston, Texas, into the offices of Compaq Computing, where apparently 2 engineers sat down and coined the term cloud computing. So it's like, the term itself is from 96. And cloud computing as a usage, as a concept, became quite popular when Eric Schmidt, the gentleman who used to run Google, really brought this out in the open in one of the sessions. And so in the early 2000s. So that's a bit of a look back into time. Now, in terms of will cloud prevail, I can probably tell you that with the market presently being in the range of $200 to $300 billion a year of spend on cloud computing, this is going to prevail, right? It's here for good. And on an average, 30% of every company's IT budget goes to cloud services. So you spend, if you're a CIO, you would spend 30% of your money on cloud computing. So that's interesting for us to note. And another key thing here is we still are undecided whether to go completely public or completely private. So which basically says that the same company which spends 30% on cloud computing spends 38% of their workloads in public, whereas 41% are still in private clouds. So it's a mixed bag that we have on cloud computing. And I would still say the jury is out on what is the right way forward, or do we even know there is a one right way forward? We would find out with our folks. And I'm very happy to know that, from the poll that we have a fair mix of people who are across the multiple phases of a journey that you have towards cloud, people who are thinking about it, people who are using it in some ways as a data center, certain people who are starting their real cloud journey, and the bulk of us are already native on cloud. That's a good mix for us to have. And I think, with the discussions we will be having and with the follow-up questions that I hope we will have, it's going to be a very interesting thing. So with that introduction, I would quickly jump into the sharing of thoughts and the debates, hopefully, that we would have. And I would like to start with you, Parna, and the question around strategy, right? What is a cloud strategy? How would you think business should insist on a cloud strategy, or is it an IT cloud strategy? What are your thoughts, Parna?
Thanks, Bobby, for the introduction, and also with a nice, start. And thanks to Trescon, for organizing this event. Before I start, I'll just give a brief about my organization as well. So I represent a company called Minda, which is around 7,200 crore turnover as on last year, and we are into auto ancillary space, and we deal with all the OEMs in a B2B market in India and abroad both. So, as far as the strategy is concerned, today, I was very surprised, a few days back, and my chairman was asking, are you buying servers nowadays, or you are going into cloud? And I was very surprised. He's a first generation, entrepreneur, and asking about cloud or something like that was very, surprising to me. And then I realized why these discussions are coming, because in their forums, in their fraternities, everywhere this discussion is going on cloud, cloud, cloud. I think this is the number one topic during pandemic and post-pandemic, although it was there earlier as well. So I was looking at certain other data points like Bobby has shared. I think the predictions are like 83% of the workloads are going to shift to cloud by 2020, and it may be plus minus some percentages depending upon the industries. 94% of the enterprises, which was very surprising from the poll, and what is currently showing me in the Dr. Google's information is 94% of enterprises are actually looking at cloud as an option for them. 30% of IT budgets are actually spent on cloud itself. So these changes are really happening very, very fast in terms of the adoption. Now the drivers are basically, flexibility and agility. Obviously, you do need to scale up. The scalability is extremely important at this point when you need to really fight with the competition in the market, and you don't have time to think about stuff. Go for a capex buying. Cash is a real problem at this point of time. Nobody is willing to spend cash. You need to spread out the investments for 7 years, 5 years, kind of thing. Third thing is, cloud has given us the flexibility for working anytime, anywhere. So this is the biggest advantage of cloud. I mean, during pandemics, we were actually suddenly we were shifting from 69 plants to 4,000 locations, 4,000 homes. So the scaling up actually happened because 90% of our applications are actually on cloud. And that is the biggest advantage we get during pandemic. The adoption became very fast. There was no big change management, and we actually were onboarded. Obviously, speed, faster action, all these other points. I think these are very basic things. I think I shared about the upfront cost, which is capex. I think that is most important today. The CFOs are all holding cash. Nobody wants to spend big amount of monies, and I think we all know the situation. The big change what is happening is, it is moving from co-location to IaaS and then to SaaS. SaaS is becoming more a consumer oriented apps as on date, and people are very fast moving towards this model because that is giving them the right benefits, out of the box. And I will say this is basically nothing but Uberization of enterprise IT, which already happened in many other sectors. Now IT is also going through a large Uberization, and it is led by the sectors like BFSI, IT, telecom, retail, manufacturing, energy, and interestingly, healthcare, which is a highly regulated industry. They are moving very fast onto cloud, followed by government and media. I mean, these are the areas which are getting pushed. I think I'll stop over here and then look for the further questions. Thanks.
Thanks for interesting viewpoints, interesting perspectives, and a lot of reasons why it makes sense to be on the cloud if you're in there already. Ayas, let me come to you now. Now, how do you think applications should exist or computing should exist on the cloud or in the cloud world? We've seen them move from client server, mainframe, all the way back to the web, and now it's the cloud. So what does that look like to you, man? Ayaz, you're on mute, please.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Bobby. So taking the cloud earlier, if you say that think about 3 to 4 years back, people are thinking that whether this cloud is okay to go, not okay to go, security aspect, a lot of things are happening. Now, if you see a lot of technology comes out when you start talking about application development or deployment or change management, what Ghosh has said that just now, everything is coming out now, it's cloud compatibility now. So people are now talking about the applications. If you see some sales speech from any product, so take the biggest one, the ERP one. Earlier, the ERP was on-prem solution and always has to be hosted in the premises only. So now HANA is now marketing that way, it is cloud compatible. Emailing solution is now cloud compatible. You talk about Google Mail, you talk about O365, Microsoft, any kind of thing. Everything is coming on this side. Now the latest trend, if you talk about the AI ML platform or the computing platform we're talking about, which was earlier a kind of in-prem basis solution, now solutions are available in the market, which is cloud compatible. So I see a shifted gear on this side. People have already adopted that one, and the application provider, you talk about big names or might be they like custom made application, bespoke model application. They are also now talking about the cloud computing based on that technology. The compiler, the profile, what we understood the few years back, so now that mindset has been changed. So any application developed, they are keeping in mind that it should be cloud compatible. If you find any client and they should be able to deploy it in cloud. So now that is now the focus area and the main. Few application I know when I evaluate for my organization, people are asking this is all cloud compatible on this thing. When I start asking just to check whether they have migrated their code from previous oldest technology to cloud or latest deployed in the cloud technology, they are surprised to answer back. We need to check and come back to you whether this is going to work in client server architecture in your premises, which was previous few years before, right? What is the reverse on the side? So I see this is a big shift happening. People are adopting, and the lot of benefit for having this cloud, the scalability. You talk about how to set up a UAT environment or application, everything is possible now. So there was earlier network challenges, how the computing devices talk to each other, but the cloud technology has evolved over the period of time. Now they have that kind of solution available in the cloud platform. So I don't think any application is now left behind, which is not compatible with cloud. If they are, they need to migrate to very soon. That's what my stand and my take is. Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Ayaz. Cloud compatibility as a minimum requirement for you to get started around applications. Very interesting, and I think a fair way to go forward. Now, once you speak about application and compatibility, we definitely come down to the concept of how do we build capability. What is the talent? What is the capability that you have, or you need to have to get going on this route? So, Joy, do you want to throw some light on this one, please?
Sure, Bobby. I think what Parna and Ayaskant mentioned, that the cloud is in, right? That's not a new thing for us. And especially when you shared the data at the very beginning of when we analyze that number of options, what is available to us, it's quite overwhelming. Now, what our guidance to the organizations would be that it's always better to set up a COE itself. Now, what is the advantage when you set up a COE? When you set up a COE, and this has been proven as a working model for multiple years itself, especially when we talk about, and if I use the word legacy organization like us, which has been into the manufacturing space for more than 100 years itself, and we have been doing our data centers for ages itself. We have been managing our on-prem data center itself. Migration to cloud, we don't need to sell that idea anymore, but we need to carve the path how that migration is going to happen, right? And COE is exactly a very good answer to that. So what a COE would primarily provide? The first of all, there needs to be a governance structure being put in. A policy needs to be framed up, right? We all know about the concept of shadow IT, wherein because of the SaaS-based services which are coming up, it is possible for business function team, like today the CFO or the head of operations or head of logistics, right, can go ahead and just pay a subscription fee and get onboarded to a particular solution itself, right? So that's called a shadow IT. And we know, I mean, being on the IT field, we know what risk it brings to us as a long term itself, right? So in every organization, there needs to be a policy that how that cloud adoption is going to happen. Some guidelines needs to be framed before we start that particular journey. So that's the first aspect, what I would say. The second, in my opinion, would be that the COE needs to work as a cloud enabler, right? What is a cloud enabler? Like, for example, when Bobby, you mentioned that when you search for the cloud service provider, you get thousands and thousands of service provider list coming out, right? So what is the selection? How do you select one and how do you don't select one? Today, I mean, we know the big names itself, like Azure, AWS, Google, NetMagic. There are multiple names which are coming out, right? And when you look into the services provided, it's more or less comparable, right? So where is the decision making happen? So the cloud COE would actually help us to make that decision making, the selection part itself. And the major aspect of it, I think we also touched upon, is that security part of it, that ensuring that the data is protected, the organization assets are not being damaged because of adoption to that cloud. So that's an enabler. That's an ongoing activity that COE is going to provide. And last but not the least, what the cloud COE needs to do is an awareness, right? So bring in the best practice, because the cloud world, what you see now, I think it started with an infrastructure as a service, and now we are talking about PaaS and we are talking about SaaS. So it's changing. It's very dynamically changing. The offerings are changing, right? So somebody needs to actually go through all of these, understand that what is best available. Like Ayaskant mentioned about the AI and the ML solution available on the cloud, right? So somebody needs to understand that, compare this, do some POCs, come up with that, okay, this is really the best solution for us, right? So that bringing in the best practice is very, very important. And also the core need of the cloud, that's the speed of execution, right? So the COE also has a very vital role in driving that speed of execution itself, right? So these are, I would say, to summarize, the three aspects what the cloud COE would bring in. The one is governance, enabler, and then spreading the awareness within the organization itself. So that's what my take on the cloud COE and the cloud journey would be.
Good ones, Sujoy. Creating a center of excellence which would, one, enable business to own their IT, at the same time create compatible processes around it, making sure that governance is brought in place, get the right choices done, and thereby be the enabler of transformation of business. Excellent thoughts on why COEs make sense and why they matter a lot. And probably now, just to bring up the next topic, Sathish, your thoughts on how applications reside on cloud as native applications. You have a COE, you have all these things coming. Can you build native applications? How do you do that?
Thank you, Bobby. And yeah, quite insightful discussion so far. So I think we are at a stage where more and more enterprises have started acknowledging or adopting cloud to a greater extent. They've gone away from greenfield to moving their day-to-day businesses to cloud. Now, as they are adopting cloud, it is important to understand for the enterprises or companies who are going to cloud on what are the features that cloud provides, and how can I maximize my usage of the features that cloud provides. Just by moving to cloud doesn't mean that I'm a cloud solution. It's like how effectively you use the feature. So I'll try to break my answer into two parts. What are those cloud features which are important? For example, the most important thing is on-demand computing. When I need a server, I get a server. And the second important thing is, because somebody else is now managing my hardware, when something goes down, I should be able to bounce back or be resilient enough. So being able to provide backup hardware in case of failure. Third is scalability on demand. Like when I, on a festive season, being able to scale to 100 times and then scaling down back to 10 times my usage is something that's very important. So there are a lot of these capabilities which cloud provides out of the box. And there are multiple options that organization will adopt while going to cloud. One is they would say, hey, we would want to do lift and shift. Well, I just take my solution, which is running on a VMware solution on-prem. I'll try to move to a virtual machine running on cloud, Linux VM. And there are other ways also which requires re-architecting your solution, which is where the notion of cloud native is becoming very popular, because we need to look at what our solution currently is, whether it is leveraging those features that the cloud provides. And that's why cloud native talks about 4 specific areas when you're trying to re-architect your solution. First one it says is break your application to microservice, so that you can offer your solution, or you can move your solution smaller piece at once to the cloud. And second aspect is, and it also becomes resilient. I can probably upgrade only one part of my service. I can, if something goes down, I can spin up another instance of that failed service. Or when a demand increase, I can selectively scale only that particular portion where my demand is increased, instead of just increasing number of servers that I need. And second aspect is, because the underlying platform and the application is changing so rapidly, how do I be able to adopt those changes much faster? So being able to automate from ground up is very important. That's where uh, aspects like infrastructure as code, like you would have heard about technologies like Terraform or ARM templates and stuff, which becomes very important, where it says I can procure infrastructure on demand and whenever I need, by probably a click of a button or using a pipeline. So that continuous deployment nature is very important. And the third important aspect is DevOps as a culture, which is important as well. So instead of applications thinking that, hey, I am responsible for writing my code, there's a different team now responsible for my infrastructure. I think these teams should come together. They should work together to understand what is my platform requirement, what is my application requirement, and when my platform is changing, how to adopt to those capabilities so that I can better leverage the feature that the cloud provides. So that is an important factor. And fourth important factor is, like you would have heard about containers or containerization, which is very important, because what it helps you do is you build an application once, and then you can move it from your on-prem private data center to a public data center like Azure, or it also gives you the flexibility to move to multi-cloud, like from Azure, you want to put another data center on AWS or GCP due to various geographical reason. It gives you that flexibility where you don't have to rewrite your code, simply build code once and probably put it anywhere and access it anytime that you want. I think these are the core aspects where the idea of cloud native is getting popular. So when enterprises are trying to move to cloud, I think you should probably think about how I can leverage the potential that the cloud provides so that I can get good benefits of my investment.
Good one, Satish. Don't let what the cloud offers you in terms of its core capabilities go to waste. Conceive microservices. Make sure that your applications are as micro as you can, and thereby allows you to be flexible. Make sure that you think through deployment and development as integrated wholes and so on and so forth. Absolutely relevant and wonderful points if you are on the way to a cloud journey that you have right now. Now, I think, folks, thank you for those thoughts. I think extremely valuable points made. Now, we split this one up into 4 more areas of discussion where 2 of you would be talking about the point. And first, let me call up Ayaz and Parna to have a chat around hybrid cloud. Like everything, do you want to go all in, or do you want to stay midway and say I'm hybrid? So between Ayaz and Parna, do you guys agree, disagree, agree to disagree? Let's hear that, folks. Okay, do you want to go, Ayaz, purely on alphabetical order?
Yeah, Bobby, I'll take this one.
Yes, please. You can start and then Parna can come in.
Okay, so in the communication, what you talk about that key, whether it's a private cloud, hybrid cloud, or the public cloud on this side, that depend upon the choice of the applications and the layer what you want to build it. In typically, if you talk about in generalized terms, that people are more open towards now the public cloud. If you talk about now the fintechs, all fintechs are using what is kind of this public cloud, because that is come as little cheaper on this side, easy to implement and faster to deployment kind of thing. That's what coming out. As part of my organization, this is more into BFSI, and this is a lot of financial data and customer data is there. We are little reluctant to go in those kind of open forum. It doesn't mean that we are not into public cloud and private hybrid cloud on this side. I have implementation which is both hybrid cloud as well as in the public cloud. I say my data, what is there, just like I say, I have implemented recently an EDR MDR solution, which is cloud-based kind of thing. So those, I don't think it should be have any harm if you go on the public cloud, and will be openness to adopt the changes and what is happening. So I implemented on that on this side. But wherever I see my data, my applications are more relevant to my organization and my client data, and to take extra application on this side, those cases I have gone into hybrid one, where my data is with my DC kind of thing and other applications are on the cloud. So I have a kind of collaboration, a kind of approach, and we have tool, and I have a multi-cloud environment in my organizations. This is what my take in is on this side. So we need to take a call on this kind of what kind of application and what kind of data we are putting for that one, and how the application is going to behave. If that is going to be a back office application running internally, or it's just like a website accessible by all the people, then you can talk the call on this side. Just like you can, I just give you an example. If it's a website, it's publicly available and a lot of content are public driven, you can choose, or you may go and select a public cloud, which is just like said Satish and Sujay also said that the scale up is easy, just a festive session, you can go 10 up kind of thing. So Diwali session, suppose you are e-com side, right? And a lot of information are publicly available, and Diwali, New Year, Christmas is a big season for you guys, or then just go and ramp up and use it. And the moment you come down from Diwali season, you just come down. But in the backend application, when you see your data, your manageability is there. So you may take a call that may be okay to go with a public cloud, or you can choose a hybrid one, or you can choose to have a private cloud if the data is so secure for you. It's basically depend upon the choice and the business application what I'm going to put on this side. That's my take. And if you are going with a public, and suppose there is open, just like I say, my what is I've implemented, it's like EDR, MDR solutions, basically security tool, which is open and is open for any kind of patches to be applicable, and I should be more resilient towards that. Then also you can think of that one. So that's my takeaway on this. Over to you, Bobby.
Thanks, Ayaz. Parna, do you agree, disagree?
Yep. Thanks, Bobby. See, basically, as you know, we are into the B2B space. So for us, unpredictability is not the scenario at this point. Like the other B2C organizations who have the peaks and highs and lows and kind of thing, we may have workload related issues, say for example, month ends or year ends or quarter ends. But those are still predictable. You know how many users will be logging in and stuff like that. Now, why hybrid cloud and why not hybrid cloud? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Let me share my perspective. So, as I shared with you that our 90% of the applications are already on cloud. First of all, we have taken a strategy, two strategy. One is basically mobile ready application and cloud ready infrastructure. So these are the two strategies we are following in the organization, and which are giving us benefit in terms of scaling up very fast in terms of the deployment of applications. Now we are actually into 8 cloud providers today as on date. That means whatever cloud providers you know, and which are the number 1 to number 8, we are with them, all of them rather. So now what I want to share with you is certain benefits of hybrid cloud. Why we went with 8 and why not only 1 or 2 or something like that. The reason is basically the right solutions. So like somebody mentioned, I believe Sujoy or Sathish was mentioning about AI, ML. I think IaaS was also mentioning about AI and ML capabilities. Today, AI and ML is basically becoming a bread and butter of your enterprise IT and your architecture. So when you talk about AI and ML, you are also utilizing the big data science, you're utilizing the big data architecture. You need to scale up very fast. And we have gone with some certain providers who have the right capabilities on big data and AI. Then we have certain areas where the computing is more important. So we went to the Y company. So then XYZ like that, we went ahead with 8 now today. Okay, so the advantages as I shared is basically capabilities, the solutioning, the 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 availability of services, and obviously availability of services with the right cost. So that is the advantages of hybrid cloud. Now the disadvantages of hybrid cloud. One is cost overruns. Suppose you plan for X amount of budget in your budgeting exercise, and suddenly you go to hybrid cloud because of the demand and the nature of services you need from them. You may run into a cost overrun, and you may go to your CFO again and say, "Boss, I have already spent my money. Please give me something more because I need these services and only from this provider because the other services are not available in the generic cloud." So that can be one of these stress. The second biggest problem is integration. Now that is what we are facing today as on date, and we're trying to find out solutions which are more, I will say agile, microservices based, real time, batch processing, all kinds of integration we need with the service providers. And there is no consortium available today as on date. So like somebody was talking, as the Sujay was talking about COE. So we also should be having a GOE. So government, owned enterprise, I don't know, something like that. Some framework has to be there, which will help in, the cloud consortium where the integration services will be much easier to do. That is one of the disadvantages. And the third, I think the most important part is skills to manage hybrid cloud. Because internally, you may have good skills to manage Azure, you may have good skills to manage AWS, but you may not have good skills to manage all the 8 cloud service providers. Everybody will be having different, architecture, screens, layouts, services, applications. So it's it's really difficult to manage this kind of a complicated scenario. So I think advantages are there, disadvantages are there. I think Ayaz rightly mentioned that the organization has to decide how to go with the right strategy in place, and accordingly you can, go ahead with your journey.
Thank you, Parna. So I guess pretty much what we're saying is process for courses and be aware in the routes that you want to take, and thereby make sure that you get the best out of the approach. That's a fair way to say. And now let me call the other two gentlemen at the bottom of the screen, as far as my screen goes, Sathish and Sujoy. And a very interesting point of view for us to talk about is threats around cloud. Like anything new, it's territory that's new. And likewise, the world that we live in, there's a lot of threat that lurk around in the shadows. How do you want to do this, guys? I mean, how do you want to manage for it, plan for it, and make sure that you're safe? Again, going alphabetically, start with Sathish and Sujoy, bringing up the next set of points. Sathish.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a primary concern when adopting public cloud is like, what is my attack surface? Am I opening up everything where anyone can access my services? So I think a right kind of planning and architecture is important. Identifying which is the part of my application that is exposed publicly, or we call it as demilitarized zone, DMZ, and which part of my application is accessible only within a certain virtual network or from my on-premise. So that reduces your attack surface, saying that only area that is exposed is one particular front-end service, which has its own set of firewall rules and stuff, which guards what are the requests that will probably go into your backend services, which is secured within a virtual network. That is one part. The other aspect of security that we generally take is anything that we put on cloud need to have end-to-end encryption on transit. So whether the data is flowing from on-prem to cloud, or whether the data is flowing within the cloud between multiple microservices, you need to ensure that the traffic within, even if it's within 2 different VMs in cloud, you need to ensure that the traffic is encrypted end-to-end last mile. So there are capabilities like service mesh, which is getting really popular in trying to enable those capabilities. And when it comes to data perspective, also it's very important, like data governance rule on who gets access. So being able to define those rules on specific role-based access rules, saying that who is an admin, who is an operator, who is a contributor, is very important, so that depending on the role that is assigned, they get a corresponding access to the application and the underlying data. And I think fourth important aspect is encryption of the data itself. How do I make sure that when the data is stored in Azure or public cloud, how it's encrypted at rest, so that I can be sure that even if somebody picks up, they don't get to get access to the data, or if it's encrypted using a key which is managed by the customer himself, so that he's sure that only I can understand the data that is put on public cloud. So there are capabilities that cloud providers provides. I think it's very important to understand as an architecture team or a COE to determine what capabilities that a cloud provider provides, whether that would suffice our requirement to go to public cloud, ensuring that we minimize the attack surface, and we also implement all the recommended best practices that the cloud providers provide to us. I think it's very important to take a call on that.
Good one, Satish. Data encryption, definitely making sure what the COE would do and so on. Sujay, what are your points of view?
Yeah, I think I just want to add 2 more points onto that, what Satish mentioned, that the security on cloud is a shared responsibility, in my opinion, always, right? You have a provider and you have the customer, or who are the subscribers to that, right? So when, depending on what kind of platform we are selecting, it's IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, the responsibility of the security slightly is weighted on one side and low on the other side itself. But normally as an organization, what we should be doing is that whenever it's a provider, We should get, third-party certificates like ISAE 3000 or 3400 or some series like that, right? So we should get those kind of reports available with us so that we ensure that the data is protected, whatever the data we are uploading. And similarly, as Sathish mentioned, that what is in organization control, the user access management itself, that needs to be properly put in. Definitely, at this point of time in the market, we have got a lot of next-gen firewalls available itself, which helps us to build this particular secure solution itself. But it's a difficult journey, it's a challenging journey, and I'm sure as we move forward, as I mentioned, with the COE and other kind of thing, we would be able to reach there and build a secure platform in this new world as well.
Thank you, Sujoy. Firewalls, network-related protection, extremely important. Now, guys, I think, at this juncture, we take a quick break to answer a couple of questions that we have from the audience. So we have one from Mr. Charanjit Bhatia, and this is around multi-cloud strategy. Do you have one size fits all as an approach? How should organize strategize on IaaS versus PaaS? And how does that whole thing go? So maybe Parna, you started off with the whole multi-cloud strategy aspect. Could you quickly respond to that, please?
Yeah, I think most of the speakers already have spoken about it. So, you should only have multi-cloud strategy when I just talked about hybrid cloud, and you have the right solutions available at what point of time. Say, for an example, we should not give examples, but I think let's give an example, otherwise it will not be clear. We are currently using Power BI services from Microsoft in Azure Cloud. Now, Power BI services from Microsoft in Azure Cloud is the best combination. You may have this in another cloud as well, but will you go to that, or will you continue with in your strategy along with Microsoft? Is point number one. Point number two, you use big data services along with AI ML, and the best-in-class solutions are available in AWS cloud. Now, should you go into another cloud provider? I mean, yes, you can, but then you lose out in some of the opportunities or the competitive advantages. So I think that is how this strategy has to be formulated. There is no right or wrong strategy. It has to be the strategy as on when you go. So see, let me tell you something like this. The cloud is a ever evolving, situation. So it is not like a proven solution for past few decades. So when you are into this journey, you need to actually see what are the things going right for you and what are the things are not going right for you. May burn your hands sometimes, in the whole process. But the point is, this strategy is ever evolving, and there is nothing right or wrong. I think it's a matter of practice. As you practice more, and like as Sujoy mentioned earlier, as your COE is very, very strong, and they're really doing the right POCs and right kind of, finding the right opportunities and right use cases in the market, and we should be ready to go ahead with the right multi-cloud strategy.
Thank you, Parna. That was like a fairly detailed answer. I hope, Mr. Bhatia, you have got at least a sense of what you should be essentially doing. Now, let me call up IaaS because the question is around what PSUs, applications, guidelines, government-related guidelines are on PSUs. So maybe from the banking industry, IaaS, if you could throw some light on what the regulatory guidelines, not specifically government, but also around that.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Guidelines, there is no specific guidelines for particular related applications, right? So what the guidelines RBIs and other people have said, the data, what is there, it should be reside in India, which was earlier is a challenge. So now if you talk about multiple cloud environment, whoever the cloud provider, name it anybody kind of thing. So they have now data center in India. So they assure you and give an assurance that the data is not moving out of the country. So it's very much premisable in the boundary. Second guidelines say any requirement, any inquiry happens, we should be able to retrieve the data. So I'd say that the data is available in India, it's not traveling out, so that is threat is minimized. And you have local governance and rules and regulation by government of India so that you can retrieve the data. Second part is that how do we encrypt that? A lot of things are happening like Commvault and a lot of solutions available. You can adopt any of the encryption kind of thing. So there is a key available. You can encrypt it and you can store it anywhere. Now the cloud providers also provide you storage, so where you can back up your data for a longer period of time. As per guidelines, the data should be available for till 7 years on demand. And previous to that one, it might be on the request base. So that's what the guidelines says on this side. On top of that, organization CISO and CIO have jointly put some stringent guidelines on top of that for BFSI and PSU for other kind of industries, that whenever they have a kind of cloud environment, they took other backup in other geographical locations. So it's come about a DR kind of thing. A lot of organizations taken a call that they have a in-prem backup also, so that the tertiary backup also available. So those days gone when we were taking the data in tape and a DLT drive and store it some fireproof one. So now we have multiple partners available in that, just like Iron Mountain, writers and all people. They also give you a solution if you want to, you don't want to take that headache on your premise and don't want to invest in your infrastructure for that one. So those kind of services also you can tie up these partners. So those are within the guidelines. And they are very much, if you talk about multiple, any BFSI, they will be either with anybody of them. So there is it's a choice of yours that how you want to deal with and commercially viable on this side. And everybody provides equal kind of solutions. That's what my take, Bobby.
Thank you, Ayas. And I think Mr. Manish Gupta, that would have answered your question in detail. If you have a follow-up, feel free to write to us. Now, the next face-off, I think, is Sathish and Sujoy, between the two of you folks, on how do you skill an organization for the cloud, governance, utilization, bringing it about, and the way you want to change people, old school, new school. What is infrastructure? Why did you guys just take a shot at that one? Maybe we start with you, Sujoy, and then go to Sathish this time, turning around.
Sure. Yeah, I think, Bobby, that's as I mentioned, it's a very valid point for us, and especially like the organizations which are being probably, if I take a backside of it, the new startups kind of thing, for them, the cloud is already in the DNA. They start thinking cloud. Nobody, as I think Parna and others mentioned, that we don't think about building, what his director was asking, that whether we buy server or we go for cloud. So any new startup organization, they will start with cloud. That's there in the DNA, right? But what happens to again, I go back to the legacy organization itself, where we have a mix of things, right? Various mix of things. And it is a journey for us. There's no silver spoon that, you wake up one day morning and you have a folks who are all cloud ready. That's not going to work out, right? So we need to invest on that, and then identify resources who are willing to take on this particular challenge, and then gradually move forward itself. So that's about the skill transition, what is happening. The other challenge what we face is that, when we want to go into cloud, like going into an IaaS is always not very beneficial for us, right? From a cost perspective, from a management perspective, it's always that you go to a containerized mode, Kubernetes or PaaS kind of a solution. That's where the benefit lies. But the challenge is, many of our applications are not even ready for PaaS, right? And this is also another journey, that how do we make our legacy applications, which were built in a client server kind of an architecture, how can we take them into PaaS and make them PaaS ready, right? So that these kind of small pieces of thing, we have to keep on doing one after the other and build that particular team itself. Unfortunately, Bobby, in my opinion, there's no silver spoon. There is no ready-made solution that you just get your skill ready on one particular. It's an investment, it's a journey, and we have to move forward one after the other and get the results done on that and work on the maturity path itself.
Great.
That would be my
Sathish.
Yeah, I agree with Sujoy. The biggest challenge that we see in we definitely see there is a skill gap in the large enterprises which are adopting cloud, because for most of them they're used to working in virtual machines and and then monolith architecture where there's one big application, everything is part of it. Now suddenly when we are talking about cloud, we are throwing them a lot of jargons. We are saying, hey, go to Azure, go to AWS, use virtual machines, use VNet, use blob storage, etc., etc. And then we also talk about architectural pattern, like use microservices, use service mesh, use containers. So at some point of time, the team feels totally overwhelmed. Okay, do I need to learn this much or on this particular point of time for me be able to be good on cloud? The answer is no. I mean, like he said, there's no silver line. But I think what we have to encourage team is being able to skill up themselves over a period of time, instead of expecting somebody to come forward, take training courses and stuff, because it is not possible to educate the entire organization about cloud at some point of time, but instead enable them with capabilities like a lot of organizations now providing online material like Pluralsight, Udemy, or Coursera licenses, where their team can go ahead and start learning on this new technology at their own pace instead of doing it one altogether. And a lot of cloud organizations are also providing free certifications, like Microsoft provides free Azure certification for all its enterprise customers, so that their team can now start familiarizing with them cloud, use certification as a target for them to go to a certain level, and that can also be probably measured as part of your PMM cycle or performance cycle if needed. I mean, there is always a debate on should it be considered as part of performance, but if the organization is bullish towards cloud and skilling up is important, I think there need to be certain guidelines set on how the team puts enough effort on increasing their skill on these new technologies, new capabilities, and then over a period of time, as you're working on it, you will definitely learn. So yeah, there is no one solution that fits all. It is a journey, and I think it'll take probably a year or two for an organization to gradually go towards a stage where they have enough resources who know cloud, and then they can start training others within the organization.
Thanks, Sathish. And the clock has beaten us on this one, and thereby we have to drop one question. But I guess we did justice to the topic, and we had a very fairly involved discussion, a lot of good points of view. Thank you, folks, for doing this. Handing it back to you, Bhavna.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohan, for moderating it so wonderfully. Thank you so much, Parna. Thank you so much, Sujoy, Sathish, and Ayaskant for joining us and giving us your valuable inputs. And also to the audience, Bobby, they were really interactive throughout the poll, I would say, and also giving us the questions to our esteemed panelists. So thank you once again, dear panelists, for joining us today.
Thank you, Bhavna. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.